My best friend of 12 years sat me down and read from a notebook detailing every drunk disaster I'd caused over the past year, fights I couldn't remember, promises I'd broken, nights I'd nearly died. I thought he was being dramatic until I realized I couldn't remember a single week in the past 3 years when I hadn't been drunk. The man who knew me better than anyone told me I had become someone he didn't recognize, and he was done enabling my slow suicide. My name is Ryan, and I want to tell you about the night my best friend of 12 years looked me in the eye and told me he couldn't watch me kill myself anymore, and how his brutal honesty forced me to confront the fact that I had been slowly destroying everything good in my life for the past 3 years. It was a Saturday night in October when I found myself sitting on the bathroom floor of a house party I barely remembered arriving at, staring at my reflection in the chrome base of a toilet and trying to figure out how I had gotten there. The last thing I clearly remembered was pre-gaming at my apartment with my roommate Kevin around 8 p.m. Now it was past 2 a.m., and I was alone in a stranger's bathroom. My shirt was missing, and there was blood on my knuckles from what I could only assume had been another fight. Couldn't recall. This had become my normal Saturday night routine. At 27, I was a functioning alcoholic who had convinced myself that I was just having fun and living life to the fullest. I worked as a software developer for a tech startup, made decent money, and maintained the appearance of having my shit together during business hours. But the moment 5 p.m. hit on Friday, I began a weekend-long descent into blackout drinking. That had become as predictable as it was destructive. The pattern had started 3 years. Earlier, when my girlfriend of 4 years, Jessica, had broken up with me after discovering that I had been lying about my drinking for months. "Ryan, you promised me you would cut back, but I found the empty bottles hidden in your closet," she had said through tears. "I can't be with someone who lies to me about something this serious. They're old bottles, Jess. I forgot they were there. There are receipts in the bag dated yesterday. And the day before, and last week, I had been caught in an obvious lie. But instead of admitting the problem, I had gotten defensive and angry. So now, you're going through my trash and checking receipts? What kind of relationship is that? The kind where one person is trying to save the other person's life, and he won't let her." Jessica had left that night, and instead of seeing her departure as a wake-up call, I had interpreted it as freedom to drink without having to hide it or make excuses. Within 6 months of our breakup, my weekend binges had expanded to include Thursday nights, then Wednesday nights, and eventually any night when I didn't have to be at work the next morning. My friend's circle gradually shifted too, accommodate my new lifestyle. The friends who expressed concern about my drinking were replaced by drinking buddies who enabled and celebrated my increasingly reckless behavior. "Ryan's the man." They would cheer as I downed shots and made increasingly poor decisions. "This guy knows how to party." But there was one person who had known me since college and refused to be impressed by my self-destructive spiral. My best friend Marcus. Marcus and I had been roommates sophomore year, and he had been there through every major event in my adult life. He was the best man at my brother's wedding, the person I called when I got my first job, and the friend who had helped me move into every apartment I'd ever lived in for the past year. Marcus had been trying to have conversations with me about my drinking, but I had become expertly skilled at deflecting his concerns with humor, denial, and manipulation. "You're starting to sound like my mom," I would say when he brought up my behavior. "I'm fine. I just like to have fun on the weekends." "Ryan, you got arrested last month for public intoxication. You missed your nephew's birthday party because you were too hungover to drive. Your boss called me looking for you because you didn't show up to work and weren't answering your phone. Those were isolated incidents. You're making it sound way worse than it is. Are they isolated? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like a pattern that's getting worse. I had gotten very good at minimizing incidents, explaining away consequences, and shifting blame to external circumstances. In my mind, I didn't have a drinking problem. I just had bad luck and friends who were overcautious. The truth was that my life was slowly falling apart. But I had become so skilled at managing the fallout that I could maintain the illusion of normalcy for weeks at a time. I had been written up at work, twice for missed deadlines and showing up late. My checking account was constantly overdrawn because I was spending hundreds of dollars a week on alcohol and late-night food delivery. My apartment was a mess, My car had been towed twice for parking violations I committed while drunk. And I hadn't had a meaningful conversation with a woman in over a year, but I told myself that these were temporary setbacks that would resolve themselves once I got through whatever stress I was currently experiencing. The breaking point came on that Saturday night in October when I woke up on a stranger's bathroom floor with no memory of how I had gotten there. I managed to find my shirt, call an Uber, and make it back to my apartment, where I passed out on my couch still wearing the clothes from the night before. I woke up Sunday afternoon to find Marcus sitting in my living room, holding a cup of coffee and looking like he hadn't slept. "How did you get in here?" I asked, my head pounding and my mouth tasting like I had been chewing on cotton balls soaked in battery acid. "You gave me a key 2 years ago, remember? For emergencies." "This isn't an emergency, Marcus." "I'm just hungover, Ryan. Sit down. We need to talk. Can we do this later?" "I feel like death." "No, we're doing this now. I've been waiting for you to come home since 4 a.m. Something in his tone made me realize this wasn't going to be another casual conversation about my drinking that I could deflect with jokes and promises to be more careful. "What's going on?" Marcus pulled out his phone and showed me a video that made my blood run cold. It was security footage from the party I couldn't remember, showing me getting into a physical altercation with someone twice my size. In the video, I was clearly drunk, aggressive, and completely out of control. I watched myself throw a wild punch that missed entirely, fall backward over a coffee table, then try to continue fighting while lying on my back like an overturned turtle. "Where did you get this?" "The guy you tried to fight is pressing charges for assault. His girlfriend posted this on social media and someone tagged me in it." "Ryan, you're lucky he didn't seriously hurt you." I watched the video again, trying to remember any part of the incident. The person in the footage looked like me, but I had no recollection of being that angry or that out of control. I don't remember any of this. I know you don't. And that's the problem. Marcus set his phone down and looked at me with an expression I had never seen before, a mixture of sadness, frustration, and something that looked like grief. "Ryan, I can't do this anymore." "Do what?" "Watch you kill yourself in slow motion. Enable your drinking by pretending it's not as bad as it is. Lie to people when they ask me how you're doing." "Marcus, you're being dramatic." "I had one bad night." "One bad night." "Ryan, let me tell you what your one bad nights have looked like over the past year." Marcus pulled out a notebook and began reading from what appeared to be a detailed log of my behavior. March 15th. "You got so drunk at Tom's birthday party that you pissed yourself and had to be carried to my car." April 3rd, you showed up to your cousin's wedding reception already drunk and made a scene during the toasts. May 22nd. You got kicked out of 3 different bars in one night and ended up sleeping in your car in a McDonald's parking lot. He continued reading for 5 minutes, detailing incidents I had either forgotten completely or remembered differently. Hearing them listed chronologically was like watching a documentary about someone else's life, someone whose behavior was clearly spiraling out of control. June 18th. You called me at 3 a.m. crying about Jessica and threatening to drive to her house. I had to come over and take your keys. July 4th. You got into a fight with a teenager at the block party and his parents threatened to call the police. Why are you keeping a log of my mistakes? Because I've been trying to figure out when to have this conversation, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't overreacting or being unfair too. You. Marcus closed the notebook and looked at me directly. Ryan, you've become someone I don't recognize. The guy I've been friends with for 12 years was funny, thoughtful, and reliable. The person you are when you're drinking is angry, unpredictable, and dangerous. I'm the same person, Marcus. I just have fun differently than you do. This isn't fun, Ryan. This is self-destruction. And I can't watch it anymore. So what are you saying? I'm saying that I love you too much to keep enabling this. I'm not going to be your designated driver anymore. I'm not going to cover for you when you don't show up places. I'm not going to pretend that your drinking is normal or acceptable. You're abandoning me when I need you most. I'm trying to save your life by refusing to help you destroy it. Marcus stood up and walked toward the door, then turned back to face me. Ryan, I've been your friend through everything. I stood by you when you failed out of college the first time. I helped you through your depression after your dad died. I celebrated every job, every relationship, every success you've ever had. So why are you giving up on me now? Because this isn't something I can help you through by being supportive? This is something you have to want to change, and right now, you don't want to change. That's not true. When was the last time you went a full week without drinking? I tried to remember and realized I couldn't. When was the last time you woke up on a Saturday morning and felt good about the choices you made Friday night? Again, I couldn't remember. Ryan, you're an alcoholic. And until you're ready to admit that and get help, I can't be part of your life. The word alcoholic hit me like a physical blow. I had been carefully avoiding that label for years, finding creative ways to describe my relationship with alcohol that didn't include such a harsh, definitive term. I'm not an alcoholic, Marcus. I'm just going through a rough patch, a 3-year rough patch that's getting worse every month. I can quit anytime I want, then quit. I don't need to quit. I need to moderate. Ryan, listen to yourself. You're making the same arguments that every alcoholic makes. You're using the same excuses and justifications. Marcus opened the door and paused. I love you. Hey, Ryan, but I love you too much to watch you drink yourself to death while pretending everything is fine. When you're ready to get sober, really sober, not just cutting back or taking a break, call me. Until then, I can't be in your life. He left, and I was alone in my apartment, hungover, facing assault charges, and abandoned by my best friend. My first instinct was to get angry. How dare Marcus judge me and give me ultimatums? How dare he abandon me when I was clearly struggling? But as the day wore on and the hangover began to clear, I started to replay our conversation and really hear what he had been trying to tell me. I looked around my apartment and saw it the way Marcus might see it: empty bottles everywhere, dirty dishes piled in the sink, mail stacked unopened on the counter, and the general chaos of someone who had stopped taking care of himself. I tried to remember the last time I had felt genuinely happy. Not just drunk happy or temporarily distracted from my problems happy, but actually content with my life. I couldn't remember. Over the next few days, I attempted to continue my normal routine, but without Marcus as my safety net. The consequences of my drinking became immediately apparent. I missed work on Monday because I was too hungover to function. I had to hire a lawyer to deal with the assault charges from the weekend. I discovered that several friends had been reaching out to Marcus instead of me when they wanted to make plans, because they assumed I would either be drunk or cancel at the last minute. Most devastatingly, I realized that I had become the friend that people tolerated rather than enjoyed spending time with. On Thursday night, instead of going out drinking, I sat in my apartment and tried to have an honest conversation with myself about what my life had become. The person I saw in the mirror was not someone I recognized or respected. I had become unreliable, unpredictable, and increasingly isolated from everyone who cared about me. But the thought of stopping drinking completely terrified me. Alcohol had become my primary coping mechanism, my social lubricant, and my way of escaping from feelings I didn't want to experience. The idea of facing my emotions, my loneliness, and my problems without the buffer of alcohol felt impossible. On Friday afternoon, I called my company's employee assistance program and asked about addiction counseling options. I think I might have a drinking problem, I told the counselor during our phone screening. Saying those words out loud was one of the hardest things I had ever done. But it was also the first honest thing I had said about my situation in years. I started attending AA meetings the following week, and the experience was nothing like what I had expected. Instead of judgment and preaching, I found a room full of people who understood exactly what I was going through. My name is Ryan, and I'm an alcoholic, I said during my first meeting. And the words felt both terrifying and liberating. The first few months of sobriety were the most difficult period of my adult life. Without alcohol to numb my emotions, I had to confront 3 years of accumulated pain, shame, and regret. I had to face the reality of how much damage I had done to my relationships, my career, and my self-respect. I had to learn new ways of socializing, new ways of dealing with stress, and new ways of spending my time. But most importantly, I had to forgive myself for becoming someone I didn't like and make peace with the fact that recovery was going to be a long, difficult process. 6 months into my sobriety, I called Marcus. "Hey, it's Ryan. I know you said to call when I was ready to get sober. I've been sober for 6 months and I wanted you to know, Ryan." "Holy shit, really? 6 months? 6 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days. I'm in AA. I'm seeing a therapist, and I'm taking it one day at a time, like they say. How do you feel?" Honestly, terrible most days. But terrible in a way that feels real instead of terrible in a way that feels hopeless. Marcus and I met for coffee the next day, and seeing him again made me realize how much I had missed having my best friend in my life. "Ryan, you look different. Healthier. I feel different. I'm sleeping better, eating better. I don't wake up every morning wondering what I did wrong the night before. I'm proud of you, man. I know how hard this must be. Marcus, I owe you an apology. You were right about everything, and I was too drunk and stubborn to see it. You probably saved my life by refusing to enable me anymore. I was scared that cutting you off would push you deeper into drinking. It could have, but it also forced me to confront the fact that I had lost the most important relationship in my life because of alcohol. That was the wake-up call I needed. Rebuilding my life in sobriety was like learning to be a person again. I had to develop new hobbies, new ways of socializing, and new methods of dealing with stress and boredom. I started rock climbing, joined a book club, and began volunteering at a local animal shelter. I discovered that I actually enjoyed activities that I could remember and participate in fully. Most importantly, I began to understand who I was when I wasn't drunk or planning to get drunk. The person I discovered was someone I actually liked spending time with. A year after getting sober, I was promoted at work, had repaired several damaged friendships, and was dating a woman I had met at a hiking meet who had 3 years of sobriety herself. I love that you remember our conversations. Emma told me after we had been dating for 2 months. I love that. When we make plans, I know you'll show up. I love that you're present when we're together. Being in a relationship while sober was a completely different experience than dating while drinking. Instead of using alcohol to feel confident or to avoid difficult conversations, I had to learn to be vulnerable and honest about my feelings. 2 years after Marcus walked out of my apartment, he was standing next to me as my sponsor while I celebrated my 2nd year of sobriety at an AA meeting. Ryan has asked me to share what our friendship has meant to me. 2 years ago, I had to make one of the hardest decisions of my life. I had to stop enabling someone I loved and let them face the consequences of their choices. It was the most difficult thing I've ever done, because I was afraid I would lose my best friend forever. But I realized that I'd already lost him to alcohol, and the only chance I had of getting him back was to stop, pretending that his drinking wasn't destroying both of our lives. Marcus looked at me and smiled. The man sitting here today is the friend I remembered from before alcohol took over his life. He's reliable, honest, and genuinely fun to be around. He's the person he was always capable of being, but couldn't be while he was drinking. That night, as I drove home from the meeting, I reflected on how completely my life had changed. The person who had once woken up on bathroom floors with no memory of how he got there now woke up every morning grateful to remember everything from the previous day. The man who had been facing assault charges and professional consequences for his drinking was now 2 years sober and helping other people get sober as well. Most importantly, I had learned that sometimes the people who love you most are the ones who refuse to watch you destroy yourself, even when it means risking the relationship to save your life. Marcus had been right about everything. I was an alcoholic. I was slowly killing myself, and I needed to stop drinking completely. It's not just moderate or take breaks. But he was also right about something else. I had to want to change. No amount of support or intervention could force me to get sober until I was ready to admit that my relationship with alcohol was destroying everything good in my life. The friend who walked away from me when I needed him most ended up being the friend who saved my life by refusing to enable my self-destruction. Sometimes the most loving thing someone can do is stop helping you hurt yourself, even when it feels like abandonment. Marcus taught me that enabling someone's addiction isn't kindness, it's complicity in their slow suicide, and I couldn't be more grateful that he loved me enough to tell me the truth, even when it cost us both our friendship temporarily. Because of his courage, I got to become the person I was always capable of being, instead of dying as the person alcohol had turned me into.